The Don Kroah Show on WAVA, brought to you in part by Garza, Regan & Associates. If you or someone you know has an injury due to somebody else's negligence, call an attorney who shares your values, John Garza. Number to call is 301-340-8200 or garzanet.com on the web. Joining me right now in our WAVA studios is Pastor Teddy Kelemwrok. Teddy is a native of the beautiful country of Ethiopia. He has served for a number of years as youth pastor at the International Ethiopian Evangelical Church here in Washington, D.C., also has served as president and founder of Zadok University and as an instructor at Life Christian University. He's well known as a motivational speaker, a lecturer, a life coach, and he joins us to talk about his brand new book just now being released called Media Maniac: The Effects of Violence on Children and Teenagers. Pastor Teddy, an honor to have you here. Thank you for dropping by.
It's a great honor. Thank you so much.
What is the core message of this book I hold in my hand, Media Maniac, and what led you to write it?
Well, the core value of this book is just to point out the media influence in children's and teenagers' life. And it has been out there and just affecting so many children, so many families. So I'm trying to expose that. And as you know, the media is really a $1 trillion business. And especially sex and violence has been the main thing. And so this video games and movies are involving such a thing. They're trying to sell those things, but it's affecting teenagers, affecting children's, and entirely affecting society. So I'm trying to point out that problem in here in the U.S., and also the very reason that made me write this book is I was in Ethiopia about 5 years ago, went back after 22 years here in the U.S., for the first time to Ethiopia, and I saw one of my relatives who was 11 years old playing a game called Grand Theft Auto PlayStation 2, and that came rated R, age 17 and up, and there's so much into it in the game, and I was my heart was broken seeing that some kids who was that young playing that game. So I just didn't know what to do about it, and just the Lord began to impress me, my heart. There must be change has to take place in Ethiopia and the system there, because a lot of kids are having such a game on their hands. So I came back to the U.S. to start thinking about what to do. And it took me about a couple years and still worried about what to do on this idea. And then finally I decided just to do a little research about media and the influence of media in teenagers. And I end up getting this so much information out there, gather those up, and just put them together so it'll be a little handy book for parents and children to understand the influence of media in children and teenagers. In
your own work with young people, have you found that even Christian young people really are impacted by this phenomenon of a crazed media, a media that just almost anything goes?
Yes. And I've seen actually a lot of times it has been always a sign for me when I see young kids involving media and with video games and music, and I find them out later on, involving out there and just their Christian walk, backsliding, all those kind of things. And those are the kids who are, imposing themselves or just taking so much of the media.
Now, you early on go into some of the impact of violence and the media itself on young people versus adults. In other words, there is a real distinction, I suspect probably even one between children and teenagers. What have you found in terms of brain development and that sort of thing that really plays into this? Sure.
And on this book, I will talk about 4 different parts of the brains, and I'm not going to get in there. But it's really mainly the brain development of a child and a teenagers are in slow pace. It's not fully there. And because their brain is not fully developed, and there's a problem, that is, they don't differentiate virtual from a reality. And almost we could say they don't understand the consequence of what they do. And that's why we find out teenagers driving beyond the speed limit. They don't understand what the consequences after that. So that's what it is. I'm trying to point out they don't understand the virtual from a reality. So we need to understand and stop blaming the children because they are in the process of growing. And so more to bring the responsibility upon parents guiding their children in that.
And would it be fair, Teddy, to say, though, that even though their brains are still very much being developed, as you point out very thoroughly in the book, their emotions are well developed, which is to say they tend to react emotionally to issues, almost a visceral reaction to what they see, as opposed to thinking through the logic of it.
That is so true. And actually, that's one of the things I discuss about, and that they are more moved by their emotion than the reasoning or rationing part of the brain, the prefrontal cortex, that part of it. And they are more moved by impulse. That's the problem with the teenagers and children.
As we said, you've had the chance to see this happening to young people both here in the U.S. and even in your home country of Ethiopia, and we'll talk more in a moment about your plans for the future in that regard. Have you been able to see how this can be controlled by parents and good parenting? In other words, have you been able to field test the recommendations of this book in ways that say to you, this book can be helpful to people?
Yes, I did. And because of my research also, I found out so many of examples and how parents are keeping their kids away. And I actually, I mentioned something on the book, and I said to have a good output, filter the input. So in order to have a good output on a child, you must filter what you're putting in. So that's where really the issue of a parent and controlling the media comes in. When parents are sitting down and watching TV with the kids, make sure they check out the videos or the movies or the video games before their children get it. And also using the techniques of the remote controls and all the V-chips and all those type of things, and to protect the kids. And this has been a proven method for many parents and many families.
You also say the things you dwell on the most, you will end up indulging in.
Yes, and that is really driven from a biblical base also. And the Bible clearly puts it. It said, as you think, so you are. So it's really what man thinks, so he is. And so when you put your mind into something, you will end up getting to it. And here's a problem I see a lot of times, because people think I could just think of anything I want to think, but I still try to walk this way. But it's impossible. If I start thinking about ice cream and go to get something else, it's impossible. I'll order ice cream because my mind is full of ice cream. So a lot of times what happened to the kids, they watch it in the video, they play it in the game, and they talk about it in school, and then their mind is full of those things. So if they are dwelt in it, they will end up indulging in such a thing.
Now, also, I'm reading a sentence right now from one of the pages that says the acceptance of violence in society enhances the complexity of the situation. In other words, the philosophy that violence is unavoidable. It's all around us. It's just part of life. Mm-hmm. How significant is that line of reasoning?
That's a problem. Again, what happened is people become desensitized, began to feel it's okay. And that's one of the things I also discussed in the book. And kids are growing up playing games, violent games, and then they end up feeling it's okay. I mean, it's okay because they get used to those things. And I think that's the mentality of the society, because they got used to it and they think, you can't get over it at all.
Would you agree that it's also incremental? In other words, the more of a child is exposed to violent behavior on a screen or in a movie or whatever, the more he or she may want. And it's almost addictive. In other words, they come to a certain level. I suppose it's reflected in these games, but after a certain point, there's not enough violence. They want to do something more.
Yes, it is. It is just like any other addiction. Kids who are playing video games and addicted in such violent movies and stuff like that, it is addiction, and there is a craving inside of them, want to feed and want to get more of those things every day. I heard once, I'm not sure where I got it from, but I heard this, sin takes you farther than you want to go, keeps you longer than you want to stay, charge you more than you want to pay. And so that's how it is. And addiction is always pulls you and takes you longer, keeps you longer. And that's how it is.
Costs you more.
It costs you more.
We're talking with Pastor Teddy Kelemwrok